I think the golden thread throughout that, when it comes to breaking down silos, is communication, is reaching out and talking about what you're working on and how that connects to the larger, business goals or your collective goals, which is hard to do. I mean, everybody's so busy. So taking the time sometimes to, restate, reframe, update. Sometimes I feel like people might think it takes away from the focus of what you're doing to deliver on creating something. But I think in the end goes a long way to breaking down those silos.
Welcome to Creative Health Tech, your dose of strategic creativity from the minds pushing the boundaries of the health tech industry. We are your hosts, Felippe Silveira and Raff Marques, founders of MOE. In this episode, we're diving into the impacts of collaboration and cross-functional knowledge, not only for creativity's sake, but to empower the business. And joining us today is Andrea Womack, previous COO and current Chief Content Officer at Psych Hub. Andrea, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here.
We're so happy to have you. And well, as always, we start, like this, but I think especially in your case, it would be amazing for the listeners to know a bit more about your background, like how you got to work with mental health tech and how actually you arrived at Psych Hub.
Yeah, it's I did not know that I would end up here, but I'm so glad that I did. So I started out, my educational background is in psychology and social science, and I got started in community mental health, basically providing care management services for folks with serious mental illness in the community. And it was a great intersection of social work and psychology. And that really kind of instilled, I think, a lifelong passion for helping individuals in the mental health space. And from there, moved on into program management for long term services and supports. Again, really focused on mental health care services in long term care settings for older adults, as well as waiver supports for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. That work was really focused on providing utilization review and program management for care services. And the things that were involved there were training large networks of clinicians and assessment facilitation. But I think when it comes to technology, I was really fortunate to work with a small company that was growing and really thinking about how to use technology to forward those services. A lot of the work was manual and fax based, and
Fact
just
space.
yes, just really
Yeah.
mail and, processes that were just ripe for innovation. And so I got to
Yeah.
work with leaders who were interested in, creating algorithms and technology and communication systems to really help, forward that work, from an efficiency and a quality perspective. So I also got my feet wet in quality improvement at the time, which was a really fortunate process for me to learn about outcomes and how to think about the impact of the services that
Hmm.
a team is providing. And so during that time, like I said, I also got the opportunity to train large networks of clinicians, and that work allowed me to work with folks who were thinking about instructional design and also thinking about how do we communicate the importance of the application of clinical science and quality care to an operational process, as well as always thinking about the human on the other end of that process. And so I think
Sure.
that was really where I started to enjoy some of the more creative components of education and design and technology. And so I was looking for something within that world and found Psych Hub, and Psych Hub was just starting. Marjorie and Morrison, our co-founder, along with Patrick Kennedy, they were getting a small team together, and I found the opportunity and just loved the idea of building something from scratch. I had worked with a small company before, and that agility and ability to create
Yeah.
from the beginning was really attractive. And so that's how I found Psych Hub, and I've been there ever since.
Incredible. And you have a really significant transition and really interesting one of going from chief operations officer to content officer. Like, how do you feel that like your experience on the operational side, how did it inform or how did it impact the way that you approach the content?
Yeah, so I should say a little bit more about what Psych Hub does. So Psych Hub is a education and connection platform, and so we started by launching mental health training, and that's how I joined and why I joined Psych Hub is to lead the operational components of that product, if you will. So that was really the focus of my role at the beginning was creating both consumer focused content. So we have a large YouTube channel with lots of content that is demystifying mental health and breaking down sometimes some complex concepts into accessible and engaging content for consumers, as well as building more complex, in-depth training around evidence-based practice for clinicians. So I came on with the goal to lead the operations there. And then as Psych Hub was growing and we really found the need to have a focus on both the operational growth, we were getting into different markets and adding more complexity and depth to our customer support services, as well as building out our care navigation service. It became apparent that we needed more leadership focus in both of those areas. And
Hmm.
again, just super fortunate to work with a leader and a founder who was open to hearing what I love to do and seeing what I love to do and
Mhm.
seeing the joy that building content and engaging with subject matter experts and education experts and creative experts, the joy that that gave me in my professional life. And so she was open to me transitioning into the role that best suited me and that would best suit Psych Hub in the end. And so we brought on a new chief operating officer, and I was able to transition into the role of chief content officer, which has, I think, been a lovely transition. I'm so glad that I was able to do that and fortunate that Marjorie was open to that adjustment.
Great. And of course, coming from operation to more creative exploration is a big shift, right? And usually people have either a operational minds or more of a creative one. So how is this balance for you actually on the structure and systems to storytelling, empathy? You talk about like the
Yeah.
complexity of mental health, how of course making this accessible to people, but how it is for you, like seeing both ends, how one informed the other for you in that.
Yeah. Well, I think it's almost impossible to be a leader in content development without understanding operations. I think you have to understand, constraints when it comes to resources, timelines, and, how the work you are doing might intersect with the work of other team members and departments and function around you. So I think most content leaders need to have the comfort with operational processes. And obviously, with my background and thinking about workflows and how to leverage groups of people with various skill sets to one singular focus and a goal was something that I was very familiar with. And I think for Psych Hub, understanding I think a couple of things that were most helpful for me is I understood our customers. So I had a lot of interaction with customers in the operations role, and I understood the learners' needs and got to hear from them. And so I was able to continue to take that into the content role and really informed, how are we meeting the needs of the folks on the other end of the content that we're producing. And so I think that that definitely was, something that was very helpful to me. I think the other part of it is I never really thought of it as oppositional or as the two weren't working, weren't rowing the same way, so to
Yeah.
speak. And I think that comes down to, laser focus on your goals and your mission and what you're trying to accomplish and communicating that along the way. And so I think in an operations role, I was able to I was fortunate to be able to work with so many differently skilled people. So folks that are thinking about how do I use, educational concepts to deliver this training, and then how do I make it interesting? Like, how do I not lose somebody halfway through? And so I'm thinking about editors and writers, and then the subject matter experts who are brilliant and
Mhm.
have so much to share, but we have to do that like within an hour. So like, how do we get all of those people working together and giving space for their creative talents within defined set of deliverables. And so I think that uh, that's the most fun part is watching people use their specific talents to help create the final piece, I think is really exciting.
Yeah, like matching talents,
Yeah.
matching expertise. And nowadays, what are the current formats of contents that is produced with Psych Hub?
I'll talk about today, and then I can talk historically as well. We've done so many different types of content for different audiences. I don't think our audiences have changed much over time. We still continue to produce content for the public, for, everyday people who aren't clinicians, who are searching for answers about mental health, their own mental health or someone they love, a family member. And so we've produced content that is in the form of podcasts, that is in the form of animated short explainer videos, written content. We have tons of helpful articles on our website. So lots of different types of media there. And then in our training and education side, we've created courses, traditional e-learning courses, video-based courses, content that you can print or share with a client to help them in their therapeutic process to, continue to do the exercises or the skills that you've been building in therapy. So all different types of content, social media, just everything.
Yeah, and Andrea, do you have any favorite type of contents?
Oh, that's a great question.
Or at least like what are you seeing being the most effective? That'll be also the follow up to that. So maybe
Mhm.
something that you love producing, but also what you've seen resonating more, with the audience.
Yeah. I think we get lots of great feedback across all of the different types of content that we
Hmm.
produce. I think when it comes to the training and education content, over the past few years, we pivoted to more video-based. We've always used video in our courses, but really digging into content where you're learning directly from an expert. You're getting to not just hear, the didactic presentation, like, "This is what it is," but the why behind it, to be able to see that in action through role plays that may use more of an improv instead of a, scripted approach so that we can remove that ivory tower or that best case or, like, happy
Yeah,
path kind
yeah.
of
Yeah,
scenario
yeah.
that happens, and people are like, "Oh, that was easy because you made it easy." So, like, let's see this how this, works in real life, and so really letting the subject matter expert dig into that and showcase that in a way that the person on the other end knows that they see them and knows that they see the complexities and the challenges of delivering therapy, for example, or we just completed a course on de-escalation in mental health crisis situations, and we're getting really feedback on breaking an acute situation where your nervous system is responding to something in fight or flight into an approach that is easy to remember and that you can practice and kind of build that skill so that when those situations happen, you're ready. So I think those are some of the most fulfilling types of projects that I've been on.
Awesome.
Because like at the end of the day, no matter what you're doing, the like what makes it like fulfill your let's say like your creative association with the project is just hearing from people that it actually worked, right? That they were able to understand, they were able to see themselves. Because when you mentioned about like having this not being a scripted case but actually being a work that like is not always the perfect situation that we are mentioning here, it's something that we usually strive when we're doing our work to understand like how can we make this something that connects to something that people are actually experiencing. Because a lot of times like if we're not able to put ourselves in it, we are not going to fully absorb whatever we are seeing. We're just seeing an example, but like if I can relate this to my personal experience or to my life, it's completely different.
Yeah, and I think a great thing that Psych Hub does is this make things accessible. Something as complicated as mental health can be. Make this accessible. And like you said, also people nowadays they are more about like real people and real stories on the other end than those scripted one ivory tower type of content. So it just makes sense as you were saying. That this type of content has been the one being resonating the most and also it's fun to produce, right?
Right. Yeah. Well said. Yes, definitely.
And you mentioned something that like you mentioned about having a team with a lot of different
Mhm.
like expertise and a lot of different roles. And many health tech like they have some silos because like even though as you mentioned like they're not opposite, but they somehow like they're not exactly connected in all the aspects in terms
They're
of
not in the same
operations
room
and
usually.
content.
Sure. Yeah.
So like it's common to have silos between those. So how do you see like the principles that you have not only as this chief content officer but also at Psych Hub to keep everyone aligned and making sure that there's a connection, a communication happening?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've also experienced that ebbs and flows over time, just depending
Hmm.
on, the makeup of the team, the leadership, the focus, the strategic focus of the company. And so I think the golden thread throughout that when it comes to breaking down silos is communication, is reaching out and talking about what you're working on and how that connects to the larger, business goals or your collective goals, which is hard to do. I mean, everybody's so busy. So taking the time sometimes to, restate, reframe, update. Sometimes I feel like people might think it takes away from the focus of what you're doing to deliver on creating something. But I think in the end goes a long way to breaking down those silos. And I think also just, reminding everyone of the shared goal and the collective focus is really important there.
Yeah.
Awesome. And of course, you as a leader and seeing all the different sides, how can you foster those individual expressions, abilities of your team members? And especially in a space like mental health that is sensitive, there's a lot of regulation.
Yeah, I think that when it comes to working with teams, like a multidisciplinary team with lots of different backgrounds, skill sets, that's really what has made us successful, allowing individuals to dig in and provide ideas about how to approach something from their perspective, I think has helped Psych Hub kind of pull together all of the different types of goals that we have. I think that when it comes to aligning, I think what's worked well is that we always set standards that everyone was aware of. We always want to ground our content in research, evidence-based practice. We always want it to be accessible and engaging and have representation of different thoughts and diversity of thought. And so I think we set kind of the umbrella objectives and must-haves and then allow for creativity and space and for folks to add their personal contribution, within that umbrella of must-haves. And so that's really where I think that we were able to leapfrog ourselves and to innovate and to bring out the best, and also just create an energy around things that helped our team produce the best content that we could. We were taking input from folks with educational and instructional design backgrounds. We were taking input from clinicians. We're taking input from directors and folks who are thinking about how well it's going to tell a story or deliver a message. And so I think when you allow all of those people to come together and work together, that's when you really have meaningful content. And so I think when you have a group of people that are all aligned with that mission and feel safe in a space where they can uh, come with their contributions, and you also have a really good space for feedback, which I haven't always been successful at. Feedback is tough, and especially when there are, constraints and tough deadlines and tight deadlines. People are passionate about what they do. That can create situations where you have to manage some tough situations. But I think for the most part, allowing folks the ability to use their skills to be creative, to add their own, perspective on things, that's when the best has come out of our content.
Yeah, and you mentioned like how feedback is complicated to navigate, and so there's always a kind of a risk involved. And sometimes we try to take some bigger risks because when you're trying to innovate, to be creative, sometimes you have to push a little bit the boundaries. So, is
Mhm.
there any case that you can think of, kind of greater risk that you took and that paid off, or that maybe that just didn't pay off but taught you something that
Yeah.
could be valuable to share with others?
I would say a couple of years into our process, we wanted to shift the format or the type of content for our training and education process to be more video focused, more expert led, and it pushed our boundaries from an operational process, from a skill set perspective. But when I was thinking previously in our conversation about where, we came out with kind of the best content that we've produced, that really pushed us to do that and allowed us to leverage the skill sets of our team and to allow folks to shine in a way that maybe we hadn't thought of before. And I think we really it was a risk, and I think it really paid off as far as like a pivot in the type of production that we were running, and a different type of media.
Yeah. So it seems like you might have like a lot of opportunities I hope to try different things, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the best things about joining a company in its early stages is the
Mm-hmm.
ability to, iterate, to test and learn and test and learn. And I think, I mean, we're 6 years, I think, this spring, but we're still definitely in that mindset of, trying to always improve, testing new things. So I think pivoting and that kind of change has always been a part of what we've done.
Awesome. And how do you, Andrea, how do you personally stay inspired and also emotionally grounded while working, in a field that deals with some heavy, complex subjects like every day?
Yeah, and I mean, that's good to acknowledge. Many of the things that we're talking about in our content can be really tough and are tough and are acknowledging pain and difficulty in navigating, one's mental health journey. But I think one of the, really great things about Psych Hub and the work that we do is we aren't tasked with just talking about the disease state, the diagnosis,
Mm-hmm,
the
mm-hmm.
symptoms, and how those impact and impair, someone's ability to live their lives or the way that they're living their lives. We always focus on the hope and the treatment and recovery. And I think what keeps me inspired is a couple of things. One, just having the opportunity to talk to, like I mentioned, we've worked with brilliant subject matter experts who are doing the work and doing the research and making their communities and their academic institutions and their clients' lives better. And so I think it's, I'm learning something new every day and learning
Yeah.
about the impact that we can have on the world every day from, people who study this and think about this
Yeah.
so carefully. So that's really inspiring. And I think the other thing is, hearing from our customers, folks that are taking courses, folks on YouTube, as simple as, this really, helped me in my day, or this helped me learn a new skill that I can take forward and I'm ready the next time, I have a tough conversation with somebody, I can support them. So hearing that kind of feedback where something that you've done is really making a difference in somebody else's life is of course very inspiring and encouraging and motivating.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, because like also sometimes we forget that a lot of things related to mental health, they're not something that you are just listening, but you're not going to apply that at that moment. It's a set of tools, a
Yeah,
set of instructions and information that this person is probably going to have to use in different moments of their life. So that's why I think that it's so important to not only make sure that that like it's evidence-based content, that like you have a team that is supporting the technical side, but also like you have a team that is aware on how can we break this down, because we have seen this a lot. It's easy for complexity to get into the messages because we have the experts leading that research. So breaking this down and making sure that it's something that the person can understand and can, more importantly, remember when the time comes, those tools, those practices on how to, maybe like in a moment of anxiety, to calm down, to like to breathe before acting, and all these kind of things that like they might seem simple for a lot of situations, they are not. So I think like it's the gratification that not only you might have on a comment that you read about like, oh, this helped me, but also like thinking that you did a good job and that hopefully this is going to impact somebody. Maybe they didn't comment, but maybe like you're still going to be able to help others with the work
I'm,
sure.
that
I'm,
you're
I'm sure
doing.
that many that don't comment and they are, of course, benefiting from this. But I'd say one
Yeah.
thing in especially mental health education and creating content in this space is that I usually see like two big impacts. That one is letting people know that they're not alone on what they're feeling, what they're going through. Having this kind of education just shows people that, okay, there is more people going through this. This is like a normal, right? And I feel like it's really important. So normalize mental health. And the second one is hope as well. That is like, okay, not just because you're feeling this or going through this right now, doesn't mean like this is who you are and that you have to be like this forever. There is solutions, there are ways, there are truths that like by learning, there are many ways that you can overcome this. So I feel like those two moments are big key factors whenever we're talking mental health, whenever we are educating and creating content, because that's what people need, especially in those situations. That's what education and content can produce for them.
Yeah, I agree. I think, the things that you said that resonate with me are, normalizing the discussion. I think we live in a time where people are more open to talking about their mental health. And so I think that is fortunate. And I think the other side of that is, um, you know, I think people want to see themselves. I think people want to be seen and be heard. And I think people also want information that is, actionable and that is not sugarcoating, giving it to them straight kind of
Yeah.
approach. I think that's really helpful. I think people expect that and want you to speak to them in a way that one values them as a human being, acknowledges like our shared humanity and helps them make a step even if it's a very small step in the direction that they want to go and also acknowledges that journey may not be linear. It might
Yep.
have bumps and that's
It,
okay and
it
that's
certainly
normal.
have bumps.
That's
Yeah.
100%, our life as human beings. So I think if we can be authentic and real in that communication, that's even more helpful.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
And I completely agree with you. It's kind of a step at a time, but as long as you keep doing the steps, you're arriving somewhere. Like the only thing that I can say is thank you so much for your time and for sharing your experience and also your point of view, not only as that kind of a chief content creator, but also like as somebody that was transitioning and how we can make sure like that teams they can connect better those sides that sometimes they're not having a conversation, they're not in the same room, and they definitely should be. So thank you, Andrea. And also, if anyone is watching or listening, how could they connect to you and learn more about you and your work?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you for this opportunity. Psych Hub has a website, psychhub.com. You can find everything about Psych Hub there, all of the great content that we've created. You can find me on LinkedIn.
Perfect.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Andrea.
Thank
Thank
you so
you.
much. This has been a pleasure.
Thank you for joining us. Subscribe to keep up with more episodes. And if there's someone you'd like to see on that podcast, let us know at cht@moviestudio.com. See ya.